Okay, here we go. Nice and quiet.
Sound speeds, camera rolling.
Holding for sound.
Last looks. Calling for last looks.
And set and action.
I need to swap batteries.
You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome to Making Movies is Hard, the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I am Alrik Brissell, the founding host of the podcast. I've been working on sets for over 10 years. I've made a lot of movies, either shorts or features, either as a producer or a director. And I'm just finishing up my first feature as a writer-director, The Alternate.
I'm Liz Manischel. I'm a writer, director, producer with 2 features under my belt and a 3rd one out in the ether somewhere. It's going to happen soon. I'm a former film critic, current distribution consultant, and I used to manage the creative distribution initiative at Sundance.
This week we have a very exciting episode for everybody. We are so thrilled to have the legendary Barbara Crampton, star of such films as From Beyond, one of my favorites, Castle Freak, Space Truckers, which I have to see now. I've never heard of this movie before. Body Double, which is on my list. I haven't seen that. Brian De Palma movie. Chopping Mall, love it. And of course, The Reanimator, which everyone knows is her most famous role.
Did you just call it The Reanimator?
I don't know. Fine.
Reanimator.
Okay, that's what I wrote in my haste, so don't hate me for saying that. Anyways, that's just a few of the wonderful roles or movies that Barbara has been in. But she's on the show to talk about her latest film, Jakob's Wife, which she stars in as well as produced. This is like, I think, her 3rd movie that she's produced, maybe 4th in the last few years. So that's really exciting. So this is going to be a really fun episode, and we're going to jump right into it. But don't go away, because we'll be back with a quarantine short film by Nigel Gould Davies, and a very special segment with filmmaker Casey de Fremerywho, where he will talk about how he got some really awesome action scenes on a budget for his film Warpath, which was just released by High Octane Pictures, who I pitched The Alternate to, and they turned me down.
Oh,
Anyways.
Screw those guys.
They were actually super nice. The guy was so friendly, and he was like, "Oh, that sounds like a really cool movie." He let me pitch a couple different movies, and he was like, "When it's done, bring it to us first. We want to see it. We could probably get you a really good deal." And I was like, "Well, we'll see. We'll see about High Octane." Anyways, the little inside story. Here's Barbara.
Barbara, can you give us the elevator pitch for Jakob's Wife?
Jakob's Wife is about a woman who feels like her marriage and her life has sort of gone by without her noticing, and is just sort of comfortable. And she gets bitten by a vampire and realizes all the things she missed in her life, and that she wants more out of life than she ever had, and develops a zest for life to live bigger and bolder.
Wow, awesome. How many days did you shoot the film?
I think it was around 22. Yeah.
And we ask about, we often talk with people about budget, but if you feel uncomfortable talking about budget, just let us know. But could you speak to the rough budget?
It was probably a lot less than you think it is.
Nice. And then how long did you spend working on the film from, the inception to it coming out and being released?
5 years.
Wow.
It won a screenplay contest at Shriekfest in Los Angeles in 2015. And the fest director there, Denise Gossett, reached out to me on behalf of the original writer, Mark Steensland, because he had heard that I was producing at the time. I had just produced Beyond the Gates with Jackson Stewart, and they thought it might be a good vehicle for me to either act in or produce or both. And I read it and immediately was drawn to the character of this woman that wants a second chance at life and gets the opportunity for that. And so I started developing it with Mark, and we went through a few iterations of the script. Then I started looking for partners on it and financial, ways to get it made, and met Bob Portal at Alliance Media Partners a few years ago. Then Bob and some other partners at the company wanted to help me develop it a little bit more. So then we brought in Kathy Charles to work on the script a little bit. And then we started taking it out to the marketplace to see if we could sell it. And then as we were doing that, we were trying to raise the money and kind of put it all together with a director. That's around the time that Travis Stevens' movie Girl on the Third Floor had come out. So we all knew him as a producer for many years. And we talked to him among other directors and just found the best fit with Travis. And so that was about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago that Travis came on board. And here we are 5 years later. So it took a long time.
Thank you for breaking that down for us. Actually, that was a very clear trajectory to hear about how the film got made. How big was the crew?
I don't know. We probably had maybe 30 people on our crew. We shot the film in Canton, Mississippi, and they don't have a lot of filmmakers that actually live right in that town. It's just outside of Jackson. So we brought in some crew from Louisiana and Texas and Atlanta. And the cast came from all over too, our supporting cast. Our DP was actually from that town, and our service production company was actually very close by in Jackson, Mississippi. So that kind of worked out. But it was pretty much an amalgamation from a lot of different sources to bring everybody together.
And then compared to all the other films that you've made, how difficult was this one?
Difficult. Well, how difficult in terms of producing. I mean, I'm a new producer, so I've only produced 3 movies in my life. So, I'm working with a different hat. As far as when I'm acting on other movies, I just get a call, and I don't know how hard it is on the other movies for them to, put it all together. I only hear glimmerings, but I think, it's an independent movie, so you're reinventing the wheel pretty much every time you make a film. So I think they're all have their hardships, and they also have a little bit of magic. I think the time that it took me to put this movie together was long. I hope it doesn't take this long the next time, because I don't have that many years left. That'll only give me a few more projects to do. But we also had the advantage of bringing in some people that we had worked with before, like Travis and like Larry Fessenden, and bringing in people that had been in the genre for a long time, like Larry and like Bonnie Aarons. And so there was a familiarity and a comfort level with certain aspects of the movie because we knew each other. And I think that helps a lot. And working with Travis, I'd worked with him on We Are Still Here a number of years ago, and he was the main producer on that movie. And now he was in the director's seat. So, there was a comfort level there. We weren't starting from scratch. Travis had also worked with Bob Portal at Alliance Media Partners, our main producer. And so they knew one another, and there was a comfort level there. And I had been working with Bob for 3 years by the time Bob and I met to get this off the ground. So by then we were really good friends after trying to, get this movie off the ground for 3 years. So I think that all helps, the collaborative effort on everybody's part.
I'm actually really curious to hear about the transition to producing and what brought you into the world of producing.
There was a time in my life, in my late 30s, when I wasn't really getting very many phone calls for acting work, and I wasn't getting any auditions. And I don't know if I had just hit an age where they weren't writing many scripts for women in their middle to late 30s. That was probably true, but nothing was happening for me. And I left the business, got married, and moved up to Northern California with my husband, had some kids, just concentrated on family life for a while. And when I came back a number of years later with a call out of the blue to do You're Next, and that movie really took off and did as well as it did, I saw that what was happening was I was working with all of these people that didn't do just one job. They were all hyphenates. They did a lot of different jobs. I mean, Joe Swanberg was a writer, a director, a producer, and an actor, and he was acting in this movie. And Adam Wingard was a director, an editor, a cinematographer. He was directing the movie. And Ty West was an actor, a producer, a writer, and he was being an actor in this movie. And I realized, oh, this is what's happened since I've been gone. these young people have decided that they all have to get together and help one another with their movies. And you don't do it, if you're doing it outside of the studio system and you're doing it on your own, you've got to have people lifting you up and helping you. So I saw that it just felt a little bit different to me, that people weren't just staying in their lanes. Everybody was helping one another make their movies. And I saw this especially with this group of people who are now making some of the biggest products out there. I mean, Godzilla versus Kong is probably the number one movie this year, and that's Adam Wingard's movie. And Simon Barrett just directed a movie called Seance, and I think this is his second or third directing job. And look at what has happened with Keith Calder and Jessica Wu, who are the producers on Your Next, and they're producing huge movies and TV series now. And I got a clue from them that to have longevity in the business, maybe you should be a hyphenate and learn something else and not just be one thing. And so I thought, well, if I want to be in movies that I want to work in and see myself in, maybe I have to start looking for my own stuff. Maybe I have to make my own Rocky. I don't know. So I started putting the word out to my friends that I wanted to work on producing. And so people started talking to me and things just started happening. And then I helped Jackson Stewart make Beyond the Gates. And then I helped a company make the new iteration of Castle Freak. And then I decided, I really like doing this. So in that interim, in that time period, I found the script and I said, okay, this is a good part for me. And this is a worthy story to tell about a relationship and about a woman who's regaining her voice and finding herself again after so long a period where nothing was happening with her, which I felt like kind of mirrored what I had just gone through in my life. I mean, I had a very meaningful home life with my family and my children, and I really loved that. But there was something that felt unfinished in my career. And so if something was going to happen, I had to make it happen myself. So I feel like the journey of Jakob's Wife is sort of the journey of Barbara Crampton in a way.
So now that you've produced a few projects, what do you really enjoy about it? Like, what makes you excited to go out and produce your next film?
Well, thank you for asking that. I really enjoy helping other people realize their dreams, and I love storytelling. And maybe this sounds cliche, but I really want to help other filmmakers and young filmmakers tell their stories. So since working on Jakob's Wife, I really got along with the guys at AMP, Alliance Media Partners, especially with Bob Portal, and he and I are working together to develop other stories and other scripts to bring to the screen. And a lot of them are with new writers. And it's just been an exciting time for me, especially in the pandemic, to be at home and reading scripts and giving notes to people and having them, go back and do a rewrite of something and come back and have it get better and better each time. And I really find that fulfilling. And then we're very close to actually filming some new movies this year. So hopefully that will happen and continue.
You talked about multi-hyphenates. I was curious if you were going to add directing onto the multi-hyphenate. Is that something you're interested in doing?
I mean, I think I'd be interested in directing a short, maybe for an anthology or something. That would be really fun. But as far as taking on a whole movie, that would take probably 2 years of my life of developing it, just that one story or more, and then filming it and editing it, and then taking it to the marketplace, whether we do a pre-sale on it or have that advantage or take it out to a film festival. I'm not sure I have the stomach for that right now in my life because it's just so long. And directing was never something that was in my thoughts when I was growing up. I really like helping other people. I like the collaborative aspect of producing. And if I was to direct my own movie, I might not really want to put myself in a part. And I feel like I'm getting some really great parts, just being thrown at me over the last couple of years. And I really want to continue with my acting because my acting is my first and foremost love. So I think that would take me out for too long. because you really have to dedicate yourself for 2 years to any project. And I don't know if I really want to do that at this point in my career, but for a short, I would do that. And I'm already thinking about ideas and stories that I could tell in a short.
When like trying to decide like who to go with as a director on one of your projects, like what do you look for? Like are you just trying to find like the best like personal fit for the role, like the director really can speak to that script, or is it something else that you're looking for in that partnership?
Yeah, I think it's a fit for the material, and definitely a fit for if you know that you're going to get along with the director, and they have to want to do it. You know, they have to be as excited about the project as you are. So when we were meeting with people, we just would talk with them about what they thought about the material and what their vision for it would be and how they would shoot it and what their vision for the master would be, just different aspects. And you just get a vibe from people. And if you're kind of all on the same page, or if somebody brings something to you that's really exciting and different that you hadn't thought of, that's also really cool. And we definitely got a lot of wonderful ideas from Travis, and we knew him personally. And so I do think, again, going back to working on these low budget independent movies, you really want to trust the people that you're working with. And so if you know somebody, it's helpful, and we had all spent time with Travis before on sets, and we knew he was up to the job and the task. And not saying that I wouldn't work with a first time director, because there's a couple of scripts that Bob and I have in development that are with first time or second time directors who we don't really know that well, but I love their stories enough that I really want to help them develop it. So I think, you have to take every project as it comes and see what's the best fit for this project,
I'm pretty involved in trying to redesign the film industry, which we don't have to get into. But I guess my question for you is, as a producer, have you been asserting yourself to run the set in a way that is different than the way it was run in the 80s? Or I basically, I'm so sorry, I'm nervous. What I'm trying to say is, I just think there's a history of exploitation of actors, exploitation of labor. I just think people are treated really poorly on a film set. I'm curious if you, as a producer, are trying to assert yourself in certain ways, and I'd love to hear about that.
Well, I don't know if I would say assert myself. I just say, I would say I would help to enable people to do their best work in the best conditions possible, and and to treat everybody with respect and kindness. And I just feel like a lot of things have been exposed over the last number of years that we're all more aware of, and we have to all be cautious of. And I'm happy to be a part of, even though I'm an older person, of a new generation of thoughtfulness about how we treat one another on set. So definitely going forward on every set that I've been on, that's something we think about, and we try to employ good practices for people to do their best work and feel comfortable and feel empowered.
So going back to your process as a producer, like how do you find the scripts that you're looking for to develop into a project?
That's a really good question, because I don't know. It's just like it all happens from so many different places. Sometimes it's people that I know, they'll send me scripts, or there's some agents that I know, and I've reached out to them and I've said, this is what I'm looking for. What do you have? Do you have any writers that have this kind of material? I've also gone on Twitter to these writers groups and looked through some bios of people and seen different writers talking. And there's one guy named Jeremiah Lewis that I found on Twitter that somebody said, oh, he has this really great horror story, and it's kind of it's a ghost story, but it's also a Western, and it's really cool. And somebody introduced him to me on Twitter, and I said, I want to read your script, and he sent it to me, and we're trying to develop that with him. Wow. So I've found a bunch of writers on Twitter that they're parts of groups, they're parts of writing groups. And, where are you going to find people? I don't know. It's wherever it happens, and I don't think there's a formula for it, you know. And people just introduce me to people, and some people have just sent me some spec scripts, and I've read them. So I mean, it's from everywhere, and it's some people I know, so it's kind of everywhere.
That is amazing. I love that you were open to Twitter solicitations. That's very cool. I saw the most recent Castle Free. Congratulations. Great job. It ends with a kind of reference to Reanimator, and so I'd be curious if you could speak to, are you revisiting other films in your canon? Is there an expansion to this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was something that the production company that I was involved with had gotten some rights to Charles Band's stories to remake them, and I think they've kind of gone out of business now and maybe aren't doing any more horror movies per se. So I don't really know what could possibly happen with any more collaborations with Charles Band or expanding on any of the universes of past movies I've been in. But I'm not revisiting any of those particularly now, but that doesn't mean that I won't in the future. Nostalgia is big, right? So I don't know if you guys have been watching Creepshow, but the first episode of Creepshow was sort of a callback to Evil Dead, and Ted Raimi was on it, and people loved it because it was Evil Dead and Ted Raimi and Bob Ross, and nostalgia trumps everything. So I would certainly be interested in maybe revisiting From Beyond possibly in the future, but
Ooh.
But I do know that I think it's MGM owns the rights to that now, and they're very covetous of the rights, and they're very expensive to buy. So we'd have to maybe finesse that original Lovecraft story to make something similar but different, that touches all the nostalgic buttons of horror fans.
Well, you have my money for any From Beyond sequel, prequel, whatever. I love that movie. It's so good. Oh my god. So I'm just curious, like you talked about like your love of acting and how like you like to focus on that and want to continue, your acting going forward. What do you want to do with your acting that you haven't done yet? Like what challenges do you see as an actor that you'd still like to take on?
I said before I did Jakob's Wife that if I never did another movie again and I just made Jakob's Wife, I'd be happy. And that's true because I was able to play a classic character, a vampire character. Nobody was going to give me a part like that if I didn't give it to myself. And I was an older woman playing the lead in a movie, and we don't often get to see that. So I'm good right now. But going forward, I'm up for anything, really. If I wanted to tick off any more boxes, I would say I'd probably like to play in the comedic space a little bit more and just have more fun, with roles as especially as we leave this pandemic behind, hopefully. It's not gotten worse. It's gotten a little better, but I'd like to find more joyful parts in my acting, more examine more fun parts of living my lust for life that Anne hopefully also in this last movie will find in her future.
I'm curious if you have any advice. A lot of our listeners are directors, and a lot of filmmakers, but I would say a lot of specifically emerging, aspirational, aspiring directors. As an actress, as a producer, are you seeing kind of a gap between, what a director can be and what they are? Do you have any advice for directors in terms of getting to understand the mind of a performer or how they can direct actors better?
I've always said that for every film that I'm in, it's the director's movie. And whatever the language that they feel most comfortable in, they need to work in, is the language that the actor needs to try to understand. Some directors are very good at working with performers and talking to them in ways that performers also understand how to work. So what I mean by that is actors use a lot of active verbs to try to come up with the intentions that they need to work on a scene. So in a certain scene, like an active verb would be like to seduce you. So if I was going to, seduce you, or if I was going to entreat you, or cajole you, or convince you, those are really good operative words that I think I definitely use when I want to be specific in my work to try and get my intention across to the other character in whatever scene we're doing. I don't often see a lot of directors using those particular words, but directors that understand how actors work will often talk to you in ways where they sort of inspire you to use those active kinds of verbiage to sort of put something in your mind, like, okay, this is what you're trying to do in this situation, do that. I think I do wish that there was more of an understanding between an actor and a director of how to work on the material, but I don't see that. I do think there's a little bit of a disconnect, and a lot of directors are purely visual, and they just think, oh, the actor's going to take care of it, and I've talked to them about the story and they know what they're going to do in the scene, and so they're just going to do it. But specific moments to really fine tune them and to say to an actor, do a little bit less here, add something here. I don't see a lot of directors having the capacity to really fine tune a performance, and I can't judge my own performance while I'm doing it. It's really hard. I can come up with things and try new things and say, oh, I think I'd like to try this or try that. Or sometimes the actors amongst ourselves will come up with something. I've worked with a few directors that are really good at that. And one of them was Stuart Gordon, with really talking about the scene and every scene. What are you doing in the scene? What do you want? What's happening right now? Give me more of this or that, and would give me specific words that really make me feel something. I also feel like I recently worked with Joe Lynch on Creepshow. I really feel like he did that very well because he's also a performer. And he also was in episodes of Holliston that he directed with Adam Green. And so there's something about the language there. And I also had that feeling with Gigi Salguerrero when I worked with her on Culture Shock. She's also a performer, and she gets right in there with you. I don't think that you need to have that to make a successful movie or to make an impactful movie or impactful scenes, but I like it personally when a director talks to me a lot in whatever language they have. And I did have that with Travis Stevens, even though he doesn't really know that much about acting or hasn't studied acting. His girlfriend's an actress, so I think that helps. But we would talk about the scenes a lot and what we wanted to do in the scene. So I think that's important, that at least if you don't have the same language as an actor, I think to be able to just talk about the scenes in the bigger picture and in the smaller picture, what do you want to do in this moment? I think we can understand one another and get through to one another with these little clues. But any opportunity any directors have to take an acting class, even a beginning acting class, I think your mind would just really open up, and you would get a lot of information about how actors talk to one another and how we approach material. That was a really long answer.
It was a great answer, though. Thank you.
Yeah, very helpful. I want to ask more questions, but I think we're kind of getting close to our end time for our final 5 questions, so we should just get into those. These are like kind of, I wouldn't say rapid fire, but they're like, meant to just
This is the end of my day. I can't be rapid fire. I've been talking since 9 o'clock this morning, and I had one 20-minute break. Please don't ask me to be rapid fire.
All right, well, take your time with these. So the question is, what's the first film you ever were in or made, and how do you feel about it now?
The first film, the first thing I was in was Days of Our Lives. That was the first thing I was ever cast in, and I did that show for almost a year. And it gave me an opportunity to work really fast, to learn dialogue fast, and have to come up with decisions on the fly because you didn't have a lot of rehearsal time. So I look upon that job with a lot of fondness. It also gave me the opportunity to switch from being a stage actress to a film actress, or it was video really, but just to work in a smaller arena. The energy of working on a character is the same whether you're on stage or whether you're on film or video, but the aperture through which it flows is smaller. So it enabled me to kind of hone my performance, or attempt to, in those days, into a more sort of smaller delivery.
What's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received?
Know your lines, I guess. Know your lines. Don't show up and not know your lines. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to come prepared when you're working, because everything happens so quickly, and time is money, and that's a cliche, but it's never more true in filmmaking. And so you want to be able to have as much time as you can to get the best performance and product out of everybody. So if an actor doesn't know their lines, and that's happened not to me, but I've worked with people that didn't know their lines, and it just takes so much time out of your day. And why? What's the point of that you don't know your words?
Do you have a goal as a actor or producer, or both?
I just want to illuminate the human condition and sort of help people understand why we do the things we do in life. And studying characters and dissecting them and understanding them is really important to me. So that's my main goal of storytelling, just to talk about people and what it means to be human.
If you could go back in time, what would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I probably would have, this is going to sound terrible to all the moms out there, I probably wouldn't have gone to college. I probably would have come out when I was 18 years old and started my acting career sooner. I went to college for theater, and I did get a good education, but I don't know if it really helped me in my overall career to go to college for theater, because I didn't end up being a theater actress. I ended up being a film actress. So I don't know. I think I wouldn't have gone to school, but I'd probably make my mother mad. So I wouldn't want her to know that I said that.
And final question, is making movies hard?
Yeah, it's hard. It's the best job when you're working and the worst job when you're not working. And most of the time you're not working and you're looking for work. So it's like the ultimate freelance job. There's no security in it. The only security I ever had was when I was working on soap operas. And I kept saying yes to them. I did 4 of them over a 12-year period, over a 35-year career, because it afforded me a little cushion and a blanket to make a little money and have some money in the bank. I think being an actor today is really difficult. There's so many people doing it. You don't get paid a lot. I don't know how you really, unless you're one of a handful of people that get a television show, or how do you sustain a life of just being an actor and making money? I think it's nearly impossible. So I think, what I tell young people today is you've got to have another skill. You've got to do something else. And maybe that's the reason why a lot of people are hyphenates today too. They can do other jobs. But I think having other expertise in other areas of work that can give you a steady income is also not a way to take away from your dreams and your hopes and what you want to accomplish in your life, but it's just realistic. Because I think if you want to have any kind of artistic life, and endeavor, that you've got to have a foundation. You've got to maintain some sort of semblance of being able to pay your bills and stuff. And I just don't think an acting career and working in film, unless you're on a television show for a long period of time, affords you that.
You're done. You're safe. You can go relax.
Thanks, Liz. Oh my God. Yeah. This was a great interview, but I'm so tired now. I have to go lay down. Yeah.
One last thing is, where should people go to watch Jakob's Wife?
It comes out on April 16th, and I think they will release the theaters. It's going to play at probably 100 theaters across the country, I think.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe less than that. I'm not sure. I don't have the final Google Doc on that, but that's coming through soon, and then we'll be posting that on social media. But it will be available on Amazon and iTunes, and I think Google Play and Vudu and all the streaming services that you could just look for it and it'll be there for you. Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
It's
so
been
much.
fantastic.
Oh, thank you guys. It was really nice talking to you both.
I'm going to use this time to tell you my Barbara Crampton Sean story because.
Oh, sure.
Okay. So when I told Sean that we were going to interview Barbara Crampton, he said that I had to ask her the following question. That question was, will you then... So stupid. This is the stupidest question I've ever... All right. The question is, will you title your biography Crampton Comes Alive?
Oh, because Frampton comes alive? Oh, God, Sean. Wow. Well, if you just listened to this episode, you would know if we asked this question or not, if Liz has the gall to ask such a stupid question, such a Simpson-y joke question that you could ask a person.
Below Simpsons. This isn't even Simpsons level.
It's very, very silly, very punny. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyways, Barbara was great, but guess what? We've got Get Shorty.
So you make movies, huh?
I produce feature motion pictures.
I got an idea for a movie.
This week we have a short from writer, director, and actor Nigel Gould Davies called Coronalone is what I want to say. It's not Corona Alona. It's just Corona Alone, I believe is probably what you would say it. Or Coronalone?
Coronalone.
Coronalone. I want to call it Corona Alona. That's what I wish he would have named it. But yes, Nigel, he listened to our episode with Ray and Jeff, those two older filmmakers, and I think he was inspired to send in his work based off of that. So, anyways, Nigel, here you are.
So, hello from chilly London. Why did I make this short? It's a very strange story, and it surprised me. A year ago, it would never have occurred to me to make a film. Never something that I'd aspired to. But then lockdown hit us, and it was very severe here. And something about it just evoked some reaction, caused me to decide that I just had to make a film about this. It's not part of my background at all, which lies in words and in diplomacy, and not in film and images. I know that some of your guests in the past have spoken about a force sort of speaking through them in the creative process, and that's how it felt with me. It's one of the strangest things that happened, and I couldn't stop it and didn't wish to. Why this story? I wanted to convey something about the disorientation of lockdown, the loneliness of that condition, but also the opportunity for new connections that is created as well. And also to pose the question, what happens to these connections when lockdown lifts? Will they endure, or will they disappear? How did the team come up with the funds? I was the team. It was zero budget. I bought a cheap tripod, and that was essentially it. The main cost was time. I'm fortunate to have a day job that I can do from home in lockdown. So I spend many evenings and weekends toiling away at this, but I never begrudged it for a moment. I was completely absorbed by it. And of course, you don't feel time passing really in those circumstances. Before I made the short, what did I think would happen to my career and what did end up happening? I had zero expectations. It was a voyage of discovery and learning for me. When I made it, I showed some friends and they were more than commonly polite about it. So I thought, well, why not send it to some festivals? So I learned about Film Freeway, sent it out. I decided that if it received the humblest recognition at the most modest festival, I'd be absolutely delighted. And it turns out it did better than that. And so it's changed my life. I've now begun to plot a path of future projects, each one more difficult than the last and longer and demanding more skills. In fact, I've just finished the next one, and I'm on to the one after that now. So yes, who knows what lies ahead? Now it's out in the world. What purpose does it serve? Well, for me, it's opened up this wonderful creative outlet. It's opened my eyes. It's given me cinematic eyes, I would say. I now look at the world in a different way with filmic possibilities. It's extraordinary. I hope the film itself will make some people smile, offer a bit of solace in grim times. But maybe also it will show others that you're never too old to begin something new and creative like this. And for film, of course, it's never been easier to do so. Technology has democratized access to the tools and to the knowledge and the learning, the videos, the podcasts like this one. So, if you're wondering whether to do it, just jump in, I would say. Would you do anything differently with the story now that it's done? Probably not the story. I might have added a scene or two. I kept coming across in all the advice about filmmaking, your limitations will force you to be creative. And my limitations were severe indeed. I was working on entirely my own in one room. So I think I probably squeezed most of the creativity that I could out of that. So, and it's given me so much to think about for the next project. So that's it. Thank you very much. I love your podcast. Whenever I hear the introduction and I need to swap batteries, I always smile. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Liz, what did you think of Coronalone?
I watched it in July when it came out, I think, or when Nigel wrote us, and I loved it, and I thought it was really clever. And I think I remember feeling like a little bit emotional while watching it, and then watching it again in April of 2021. It was just like this quirky piece of like, remember how hard things were. Like, it felt like something from a long time ago, if that makes sense. Like, it's so interesting that it captured this moment in time. Things are still horrible, but they're just a light at the end of the tunnel now. But the way that Nigel pitched it to us, I thought it was going to be a lot more rudimentary. I think I'll try to drag up his email, but I thought it was really clever. I have nothing to say. Like, I'm trying to find things to say. I watched it again. I literally wrote nothing down. I just enjoyed myself. I was like, oh, Nigel's adorable. And that's all. I thought it was a really good effort for a short film. Very creative to do it in this way during the pandemic. And to release it, I thought that was really brave and cool of him. So well done, Nigel.
Yeah. I don't remember if Nigel said this was his first film or if this is just an early film or he just made this when he had time. I can't really remember. It may be one of his first films.
He said it's the very first short film that he made at the height of lockdown.
Yeah.
I found it.
So yeah, it's okay. So this might sound insulting, but it does feel like a first film. It feels like an early film that you would make, when you're first learning to make movies. But it feels like one of those, but a really well done version of that, where it's like, this is just a very focused story and idea and a concept, like told very, I don't know, I would say artfully. There's definitely like a little bit of an artist touch in here, which I think is really nice. Like, it's not in your face, it's not over the top, but it's like very much has its own style and like kind of controlled vibe that it's got going on for it, which I liked. I thought that it was really nice to watch a movie that didn't have any dialogue. It doesn't need dialogue to tell a story, which I think is also kind of why I feel it feels film school-ish to me, because I think that's sometimes what the prompt is to like do it without dialogue, Right. So I don't know why I just thought of that, but anyways, I liked the way that it built, and I agree with you. I felt emotional when I watched it the first time too. I think as we were living it, and then the idea of like the character leaving this, confinement and going off back into the real world at the end, and then like but feeling sad for, in a way, like, because they're losing this connection to himself that they made during that time. I think it was really deep and interesting. Yeah. And I think had more to say than a lot of the quarantine shorts I saw, when people were making shorts during quarantine and sending us stuff all the time. Look at this thing I made this in quarantine by myself. Like, we got like so many of those emails, but we didn't really feature a lot of those because most of them weren't interesting enough to talk about, So yeah, good on you, Nigel, for making it happen. Yeah, and I don't know. It was kind of fun, like the little blue ball at the end. You know, it's like, what's next? It's kind of, I don't know. It was fun. It was charming. Lots of charm.
And also, I mean, open to interpretation. Like, I think you read it one way, and I think I might have read it another. Like, I just thought, like, he was so sad and lonely that he had to create this imaginary character. Like, I didn't even see it as himself. I saw it as this, like, figment of his imagination. Like, there's many different ways to interpret this. But my favorite part is actually nothing to do with the script, but is that Nigel is a former diplomat. And I just like, I love when people from like real jobby jobs come round and they're like, oh, they're not so bad, those artists. I'm coming round to you. And so welcome, Nigel. You're one of us now.
That's so funny. Former diplomat. Really cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like there's nothing really anything else to say, like to pull apart this or that. You know, I think it's just a testament that you can really do a really nice, rewarding story that has emotion with nothing, just a camera and yourself, and that's all you need, and you can tell a story that's worth watching. So, filmmakers, don't say you don't have enough tools to make a movie, because you do.
Again, out like pull quote city, Alrik. Like, I need to find a way to like finish my sentences so that I can be used as a pull quote.
If only I could use this tool or skill or whatever to make money, then I would be set. Too bad I don't know how to do that yet. Maybe one day. But Liz, I think you have something for us next. Yeah?
We do. We are bringing back a segment that is not often present in our show, called Soap Dish. And here's our cute little intro clip.
I'm Lori Craven, and I'm an actress.
An actress? Really? How nice for you. I'm Betsy Faye Sharon, and I'm a bitch.
This week on Soap Dish, we have Casey de Fremerywho to talk about how he got some action thrills on his no-budget feature, Warpath. Here's Casey.
One day I had seen a posting on Facebook about a contest run by Linkin Park, the band, for a music video contest. And what you would do is you make a music video for the new song they had, and if they like it, you win a cash prize and it gets played on MTV. And I just started to get inspired by it, because what happened was I just came up with this kind of general plot outline. And it was basically about a contract killer who decides to leave the business. His bosses won't let him, so they kidnap his wife, and he goes on a roaring rampage of revenge. So basically, and this was actually one of the main introductions to doing action. You know, I worked with actors who'd worked with action before, and I just got really inspired by the story itself, and used up a lot of different resources to try and make it work. And, you know, I had a large cast. I used a bunch of really good settings that made it look like a big project. And about a month later, it came together really, really quick, and we got it done and entered in the contest. And now it didn't win, but it got one of the biggest receptions of all the videos in the contest. And it sort of inspired me to start writing it a few months later, as I started to kind of figure out, like, how can you do this on a budget? How can you do this using the resources I already have? And, you know, where else can these characters go? What's the bigger story here? It started to just kind of go organically from there. Multiple drafts later, and, you know, about 10 months of writing, and onwards and upwards. For any advice I have about being able to get action and thrills on a low budget, I always just expand it out to a bigger thing, which is really, like, if you're looking to do a feature film or like a long form project, I always ask, what is it about this project that really motivates you? What is it about these characters that get you excited? What is it about the story that, you know, would make you want to go and see this movie if the only way to see it was like in a theater 50 miles away? Because you're going to have to be able to answer that, especially if you're doing a feature, which can take a couple of years out of your life and can sap a lot of your energy. You know, and these aren't made just for us. You know, if you want to be able to continue to have a career, you got to be able to entertain audiences, and you got to be able to, you know, just go back to the idea of, you know, what is it about this in the first place? And if you can do that, then you can always figure out action. You know, you can lean on your influences, you can analyze your story, you can come up with gags, you can come up with really interesting ways of conveying an action sequence and, you know, pumping up drama and all that. But you really have to have the love for your story because if you can deliver that, and if you just keep at it, and you get the script to be as good as it possibly can, and you believe in it, and you think that others will too, then other things will just fall into place. Like, if you can work with a good stunt coordinator or choreographer who, they'll be able to expand on your ideas and be able to get the most out of what your resources are. Actors, can give really good advice and can, bring their own ideas to the process. But all those things can be solved. It really does come down to story and character, and why the hell do you want to show us either of those? But if you can do that, you can figure it out. One of the big ironies about Warpath is actually that when it came to like the budget and the scale of the action, I didn't actually ever really have to cut the action back that much, because it was always written to be a very resourceful type of action, to be as sort of clever in making use of the locations as much as possible, and sort of a style I'd already been kind of developing when researching action. So it actually didn't really, the only things that I really, cut were stuff that I knew I wasn't going to be able to do, but just existed on the script page to get a sense of it. So, like, for instance, in one of the big action set pieces in the film, there's a Mexican restaurant, and it's basically a lot of different plot lines come to a head, and it ends up erupting into this, like, sort of violent brawl and fight scene that, it was actually one of the more technically complex sequences in the whole movie. But the only things I really cut from the script were stuff like, a gunshot, like fires in the direction of the windows and like it explodes. There's more casualties, people dying, like people, bodies piling up, bullet holes in the walls, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't really the type of thing I figured I'd be able to get away with, because we were shooting in a private business, and we wanted to be able to come back, and we didn't want to tear the place up, and we definitely didn't have the money to explode windows and replace them. So you work with what you have, but you do try to create other ways within the style of it that give that sort of sense of disorganization, of chaos. And so we tried to do it when we could. There's like one of my favorite shots in the movie is one of the henchmen after the main character gets belted with a breakaway beer bottle. He falls, and at the same time, a waiter drops a stack of plates at the same time that the henchman falls, and just kind of create little moments like that expand on the chaos of the situation and really just kind of create interesting beats for each little bit of action. So the short version is that I didn't really have to cut too much, but it's already a sense of when you're working on a low budget, it's not really cutting stuff out. It's more about finding out what you can actually do and then working around that. To deliver action on a low budget, it really comes down to story and character, like full stop. You have to have a really good understanding of your story, what action is there, what you need, why does there have to be action, and character-wise, what makes sense, and, what motivates it. If it's a fight scene in a steel mill, why is it there? Is it important to the character? And, what's the goal of the action in it? And who else is affected? So it requires a really good understanding of that, because to pull off action, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of luck, honestly. Now, I kind of liken it also to using, like whenever I do a project, especially if it's a low budget one where, if you're having to, borrow equipment or, use up every resource that you have to be able to accomplish something, action's no different. And really the difficulty goes up about 10 times. So like with action, you have to take inventory of what you have access to and what you need. So do you have locations that will let you, tear up the place? Do you have actors that are athletic or who have had experience, doing stage combat? Have they boxed? If in the scene they need to box, do they have experience? Can they learn? And story-wise, like what kind of action are you needing to do? Like if you're doing a big sci-fi Guardians of the Galaxy type scene and you're trying to do that on a low budget, good luck. It's probably not going to really work for you. Now with Warpath, I always kind of joked that the fighting style in this movie is bar brawl. I knew I wasn't going to be doing any kind of wire fu. I was inspired by, like the crime films that I watched growing up. And I knew that the main two characters in this movie would have some training, but that a lot of the fight scenes would be very much bar brawls and, really, in scuffles and just really kind of dirty and messy. So it was not going to be an easy process. I want to make the kind of movie where like a fight could just all of a sudden end in a headlock, like an actual fight you would witness in real life. So a lot of it kind of stemmed from that. And one of the biggest things you can do is really hire a stunt coordinator and, or fight choreographer, because the biggest thing you want to do is you need to keep your actors safe. If they're going to be doing a lot of the action, or if they're going to be, taking a lot of risk, you got to make sure that they're as safe as can be. Otherwise, you're not going to have much of an action movie. In my case, one of the big things I did was hire Tony Vella, who is a veteran of the show and of Bay Area filmmaking itself. And that was one of the best things I did, because he was able to keep the actors safe in like the most intense fight scenes in the film. And, everyone walked out, for the most part, fairly healthy. So, you have to, use your resources, find out what you can do. And, and also just kind of find out what inspires you, and what kind of action, what is about your action that can stand out from the rest. And once you have the answers to all of those, then things get a lot easier, even though easier in this case means difficult as all hell. To pull off the action in Warpath, as you can probably guess, I wasn't working with like a several $1 million budget. I wasn't working with a giant stunt team. And so every decision had to be kind of careful and really well thought out. And so, and as usual, it really all stemmed from action, or from story and character. So in this one, I knew early on that the scale of the fight scenes was really meant to be what I kind of consider to be just an extended bar brawl. So like a big inspiration for me was the fight scene in Eastern Promises, which had a very famous fight involving Viggo Mortensen against a bunch of Russian goons. And in that one, it was a very gritty and kind of raw fight. No one really looked that coordinated. No one really looked that organized. And it just felt really raw, really visceral, and really real life. Like, it really makes you feel like Viggo Mortensen is really just trying to survive a very dire circumstance. And kind of on the other end, I looked at one of my other big inspirations, which was professional wrestling, especially some of the indie wrestling from the mid-2000s, because there was a lot of fights, because basically wrestling itself is basically extended stage combat. The performers are trying to keep themselves safe. They're trying to tell a story, and they're trying to make the audience really feel like these people hate each other and they're here to settle a grudge. And while also kind of keeping it within normal physics. Like, there's no wire fu. I knew I wasn't going to have wire fu at the very beginning. So you have to kind of take stock of what your influences are and what you can perform. So, like, to pull off the action in Warpath, every decision, because we weren't going to be using a lot of like stunt people, and the fight scenes could get kind of ambitious. There was a lot to work with. So luckily, a lot of the actors I had athletic backgrounds. Some who had been in sports. Like my lead actor Gary had a lot of boxing experience. And so, we worked with them, like off and on. We worked with the stunt coordinator to, make the safest type of fight scenes that we could, and, having as much padding as we could to make sure that no one felt, unsafe, and that they can perform what we needed them to do. And so, like, there was a scene in the middle of the movie where the lead female, Sabrina, she's fighting off like a gangster, and the objective is simple. She needs to get access to the shotgun in the car, that way so she can be able to get out of a van that's holding her hostage. And it's really simple. So, it looks simple, but it involved a lot of rehearsal, a lot of like very careful motions and blocking. Like, it's in a small space, and really just trying to create as much of a safe atmosphere as possible, like with the location, with lenses, with with the actual camera placement, and to make things look as dangerous as they possibly could be, but actually be as performed as easily as like falling from 3 inches. So it's a very thoughtful process, and you have to be very careful with how you do it, and consult with a stunt coordinator whenever you can.
You know, I only seen the trailer, so I don't really know how many action sequences he has in this movie, but he had enough that High Octane Pictures wanted to distribute it. So I feel like he must have had something good. So
the octane was high enough for High Octane.
Exactly.
Just enough octane.
Just enough octane. Well, thanks for that, Casey. Much appreciated. Everyone should check out Warpath. I believe it's on the places you can watch things like Amazon and probably not Netflix. Sorry, Casey. No offense. I just don't think it's there. Yeah. Oh, speaking of movies on Netflix that were on the show. Oh, my God. Taylor Morden's film.
Oh, my God. It's blowing up.
Oh, my God. It was top 10 for like a week and a half. I watched it. It was actually great. Great job, Taylor. I really liked the movie.
Everywhere I go, maybe because I follow Taylor on social media, but everywhere I go, I'm seeing stuff about The Last Blockbuster. This film.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Did well. 1091, making it happen for Taylor. Great job to 1091. I don't know if Sana had anything to do with this one. Probably not. But, you know, anyways, that's good stuff. So I was going to say, if you want to reach out to us, there are many ways to do that, including writing a YouTube comment, which you can do so on our YouTube page, or you can support the show on Patreon at www.patreon.com/mmihpodcast and give what you can. Thanks to all you wonderful people out there who are doing that very thing right now. I love it. It's how I can pay for Cameron to edit the show. It's the only way. If you want to send us a question, comment, or suggestion, you can also do that at podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. We will read whatever you write us on the show, except can we have my Get Shorty on the show, or can you feature me as a guest? Those we won't read, but we'll probably feature you as a Get Shorty person.
Yeah, statistically, most people get on Get Shorty.
I think, yeah. And if you haven't been on Get Shorty and you sent us, don't feel bad. You will one day. I mean, Nigel was from July. Like, we're going to pull people out of the woodwork, going forward. So don't worry. If you like the show, you can leave us a review on iTunes. Any new reviews, Liz?
No, none. Zero. Nada. That one.
Okay. Yeah, I was hoping you were going to say something else. Anyways, too bad. But yeah, leave a review there one day. Who cares? You know what? I don't stop asking. I don't even want your fucking iTunes review. You don't have to do shit.
I do. Care. I want them. I want them.
I don't.
Please
I'm
read.
over it. It's fine. Who cares? We know the show's good. Finally, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MMIH Podcast, and YouTube at Making Movies is Hard Podcast.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Barbara Crampton, Priscilla Rios from KWPR for making this episode happen. Check out our website, makingmoviesishard.com, where you can find links to the things we talked about on this episode. Thank you forever to editor Cameron Caves. You're doing a fantastic job. I feel like I should just send a personal email instead of saying this on the show, but also, Cameron, fantastic job. Cameron's doing the editing for us. And thanks to everyone for listening, and talk to all y'all next week. This week on Soap Dish, we have Casey de Fremerywho on the show to talk about how, fuck, I'm going to do it again.
So, what I was going to say was, if you want to reach out to us, there's many ways that you can do that, including, I'll just redo it.